The Galactic Empire, an ancient and unstoppable force, had long spread its rule across the stars. Known for crushing entire civilizations, that Emperor Zixar had come to see the galaxy as his domain, every planet, every species, bending to his will. Countless worlds had fallen to the might of his massive warships and legions of elite soldiers, but now his sights were set on a new prize: Earth. The Empire's enormous fleet arrived in the skies above Earth with overwhelming power, confident that this world would be no different than the others. The terms were simple: surrender or face complete annihilation. As the massive dark ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their size alone was enough to send terror into the hearts of many. The Empire had never encountered a world that could resist their might, and they assumed Earth would be no different. But Earth, despite its technological limitations compared to the Empire's vast arsenal, was not what they expected. What the Empire did not know was that the human spirit could not be measured by advanced weapons or vast fleets. There was something different about humanity: a stubbornness, a will to fight, and a unity that had never been seen before. For centuries, humans had fought wars among themselves. But this was a moment that would change everything. Earth's governments, for the first time in history, set aside their differences and united in a single cause: to defend their planet. As the Empire's ultimatum was broadcast to the world, a surprising message followed, one that caught the Empire completely off guard. A global broadcast flashed across screens in every home, every city, every nation. The words were clear, bold, and defiant: "You are not welcome here." The message sent shockwaves through the Empire's ranks. How could a single planet, one so small and insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy, dare to reject the might of Emperor Zixar? It was unheard of. No species had ever stood up to the Empire's demands before, and certainly no planet had ever refused to be conquered. The Empire had always relied on their overwhelming power to crush any form of resistance before it even had a chance to grow. But this was different. Earth was unlike anything they had encountered. Zixar, usually calm and calculating, felt a rare flicker of doubt. His generals, though confident in their victory, began to whisper among themselves. Could these humans truly be capable of standing against the Empire? The first signs of resistance were not what the Empire expected. They had anticipated fear, panic, and submission, but instead, humans rallied. They didn't just cower, they fought back with everything they had. In the streets, protests erupted, with humans marching, shouting, and demanding that their leaders reject the Empire's demands. This was no mere act of defiance. This was a declaration of unity from every corner of the planet. Leaders from across the world spoke in unison, their voices carrying the same message to every city, every country. Earth would not kneel to any force, no matter how powerful. From the smallest village to the largest metropolis, humanity's answer was the same. The Galactic Empire, used to worlds bending to its will without a single shot being fired, had never seen such a reaction. They had underestimated the human race, assuming that Earth's primitive state would make it an easy conquest. But humanity had something far greater than advanced technology or military strength. It had something that no empire could ever truly conquer: determination. As the Empire prepared for what they thought would be a quick and easy war, they failed to realize that they had ignited a fire in humans, one that would burn brighter than any force they had ever faced before. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the battle for Earth had just begun, and the Empire would soon find that this small, insignificant planet was far more trouble than they had bargained for. Emperor Zixar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his fists clenched as he stared at the holographic display of Earth. His rage simmered beneath the surface. The audacity of this insignificant planet to defy the mighty Galactic Empire was something he could not tolerate. The humans had rejected the Empire's demands with a single bold declaration: "You are not welcome here." It was an insult, one that called for swift and decisive action. The Emperor's generals were quick to suggest that Earth's major cities be destroyed from orbit, reduced to ash and rubble to make a clear statement of power. It was a tactic the Empire had used countless times on countless worlds. No species ever dared to resist for long. However, Sixer hesitated. In the back of his mind, he recalled the rumors, whispers of Earth's strange and unpredictable nature. Some of his spies had brought back reports of humans' unexpected resilience, their ability to adapt, to survive in harsh environments, and to fight back against overwhelming odds. These claims, though unproven, unsettled Zixar. He had seen civilizations crumble under the Empire's rule with hardly a fight. But something about these humans didn't sit right with him. He was unwilling to risk the full might of the Empire on what might be a misunderstanding, so he turned to his most trusted warlords, the Xoreth. These elite soldiers, feared throughout the galaxy, were known for their ferocity and unmatched combat prowess. Zixar ordered the Xoreth to lead the invasion on Earth's surface, hoping that their strength and experience would be enough to break humanity's will and bring this rebellious planet under control. While the Empire began preparing its forces for the invasion, Earth's response was anything but what the Empire had expected. The entire world seemed to shift into a new state of unity. Countries, once divided by borders, ideologies, and conflicts, now set aside their differences for a common purpose: to protect their planet. The people of Earth were not just arming themselves. They were coming together in a way no one had ever seen before. Across every continent, military forces began to mobilize. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens alike worked tirelessly, constructing defenses, creating weapons from whatever resources they had, and preparing for the inevitable conflict. Yet, despite the gravity of the situation, something even more remarkable was unfolding. While the Earth's technology was no match for the Empire's advanced weaponry, the one thing humans had that the Empire had never encountered was a spirit of unity and resolve. It was not just the governments that were preparing for war. The people themselves were becoming a force to be reckoned with. In cities and towns across the globe, millions of humans took to the streets in peaceful protests. They gathered together, demanding that their planet's future remain in their hands and not be dictated by an alien empire. There was no fear in their voices, no sense of submission in their hearts, only a fierce determination to protect what was theirs. The Empire, accustomed to seeing fear and surrender in the eyes of the species they conquered, was taken aback by this unexpected response. Humanity was not only preparing for war, but they were also standing firm in their belief that they had the right to determine their own fate. What made the situation even more complicated for the Empire was that, for the first time in history, they faced a world where the entire population was fighting for the same cause. No single nation, no government, no force could be turned against the others. Humanity was unified as one. As the invasion fleet prepared to descend, the Emperor's doubts grew. He had never fought a war like this before, where the enemy was not merely a military force, but an entire world, a species that, for all their primitive technology, had a capacity for resistance that was unlike any other. The Empire had conquered species far more powerful than Earth's inhabitants, but they had never encountered a species that fought with such heart, such unity, and such an unwavering resolve to protect their home. Zixo realized that the coming battle would not be like the ones he had fought before. He had underestimated humanity, and now the price of that mistake might be more than he could afford. But it was too late to turn back. The invasion was already set in motion, and Earth's defiance would soon meet the full might of the Galactic Empire. The first wave of the Empire's invasion hit Earth like a thunderclap. Massive ships, dark as the void, descended into multiple regions across the globe, each landing with terrifying precision. The Empire's forces, confident that this would be a routine conquest, quickly began deploying their troops and technology to establish dominance. However, what they did not anticipate was the fierce resistance they would encounter. Earth, despite its technological shortcomings compared to the vast might of the Empire, had something the invaders didn't expect: an unyielding will to fight. The human military, though armed with limited advanced weaponry, fought with a cunning that stunned the Empire's generals. They quickly adapted to the Empire's tactics, using the terrain, urban environments, and guerrilla warfare strategies to outmaneuver the Empire's heavily armored troops. They knew their land better than any outsider, and they exploited every weakness in the Empire's vast arsenal. As the Empire's troops attempted to establish their foothold, they were met with ambushes at every turn. In the heart of New York City, where the streets had once been crowded with millions, now lay only a battleground. A group of civilian resistance fighters, made up of former engineers, scientists, and everyday citizens, had taken matters into their own hands. Armed with improvised EMP devices and repurposed technology, they launched a daring attack against the invaders. With a single strike, they disabled the Empire's most advanced equipment, force fields, communication arrays, and energy shields. It was a blow the Empire had not seen coming, and it caused chaos within the ranks. The invaders were left scrambling, confused by the sudden loss of their superior technology. For the first time, the Empire's overwhelming force seemed far from invincible. While the battle in New York raged on, the humans' resourcefulness became more and more apparent. Civilians, no longer content to simply shelter from the Empire's assault, began building their own defenses. Workshops turned into makeshift factories as old technologies were repurposed into new weapons and tools of resistance. Radios, television transmitters, even old drones were converted into effective countermeasures. Humanity's ability to quickly innovate and adapt was becoming clear, and it was causing serious problems for the Empire. No matter how many resources the invaders threw at the planet, the humans found ways to turn the tide of battle. On the skies above, the Empire's forces quickly gained air superiority. Their advanced ships, sleek and powerful, seemed unstoppable as they tore through Earth's defenses with ease. Yet, there was one human pilot who refused to bow to the invaders. Lieutenant Alex Carter, a veteran of the Earth's Air Force, took to the skies in a modified fighter jet, one that had been altered by human engineers to incorporate parts scavenged from damaged Empire technology. In an unprecedented move, Carter engaged one of the Empire's most advanced battlecruisers in a dogfight. The Empire's ship was equipped with cutting-edge weaponry and shielding, and it seemed impossible that a single human fighter could stand a chance. But Carter's quick thinking and precise skills turned the battle in his favor. With a well-placed strike, Carter managed to disable the battlecruiser's main power core, sending it plummeting into the ground in a fiery explosion. The victory was broadcast around the world. For the first time since the Empire's arrival, humanity had dealt a decisive blow. The news spread like wildfire. Alex Carter, a lone human pilot, had destroyed one of the Empire's most formidable warships. It was a moment of triumph, a symbol of human resilience, and it spread hope across the planet. Earth's resistance was not just surviving, they were fighting back. The Empire, watching from afar, could no longer deny the truth. The humans were not like other species. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and resilient in ways the Empire had never anticipated. What had started as a simple invasion was now turning into something much more dangerous, a war that could spiral out of control. The Empire, once confident in its power, now faced the harsh reality that this conquest would not be as easy as they had thought. Emperor Zixar, growing increasingly frustrated with the humans' unyielding resistance, decided it was time to show the planet just how powerless they truly were. If they could not be broken by conventional warfare, then he would bring them to their knees with sheer devastation. In his mind, the only way to end the rebellion was to reduce Earth to a pile of rubble. He ordered his fleet to initiate a full orbital bombardment, an act that would wipe out entire cities and annihilate any remaining hope the humans had. He believed that once the destruction began, the people of Earth would surrender, broken by the relentless power of the Empire. But what Zixar didn't know was that Earth's resistance had already made an incredible leap. In secret, a network of military strategists, scientists, and civilians had been working tirelessly to turn the tide of the war. Led by Dr. Lena Calloway, a brilliant engineer who had previously worked on Earth's most advanced defense technologies, the group had managed to reverse engineer a piece of the Empire's own tech. They had discovered a critical weakness in the Empire's weapons, a flaw that, if exploited, could turn the Empire's greatest advantage into a liability. Using this knowledge, the Resistance built a powerful defense grid capable of deflecting the most sophisticated orbital strikes. It was a last-ditch effort, one that they knew could either save or doom them. In a bold and dangerous operation, Dr. Calloway and her team activated the defense system. The grid hummed to life, a network of energy shields and countermeasures that began to pulse through the planet's atmosphere. As the Empire's bombardment began, launching massive energy beams and devastating missiles from the fleet above, the Earth's defense grid intercepted every strike. Each missile was deflected, each blast rendered harmless as the humans watched in awe. For the first time since the Empire's invasion, Earth had found a way to protect itself from the Empire's overwhelming firepower. The bombardment, once thought to be the final act of conquest, was now an embarrassing failure for Sixar. His forces had underestimated the humans once again, and this time it would not be so easy to recover. Sixar, furious and shaken, ordered his fleet to retreat and reassess the situation. The Empire, once certain of its inevitable victory, was now faced with the harsh reality that Earth was not the easy target they had thought. The humans had not only survived, they had turned the Empire's most devastating weapon into a symbol of resistance. Zixar's plan had failed, and for the first time, he was forced to reconsider his strategy. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, the mood shifted dramatically. What had started as isolated pockets of resistance now began to form a unified front. The failure of the orbital bombardment galvanized the human race. Earth's leaders, seeing the growing strength of the resistance and realizing that they could no longer just defend their planet, but also fight for their future, called for a complete alliance of nations. The countries that had once been divided by borders, ideologies, and politics now came together under one banner: the survival of humanity. This newfound unity sparked a wave of coordinated offensive strikes against the Empire. The human resistance, no longer just fighting to survive, began pushing back. Small groups of soldiers and civilians took the fight to the Empire's troops on the ground, sabotaging supply lines, retaking captured cities, and delivering swift blows to Empire forces wherever they could. In the stars, the human-made fleets, newly formed and equipped with salvage technology, began to challenge the Empire's dominance in space. Meanwhile, Earth's most brilliant minds turned their attention to digital warfare, hacking into Empire communications and disrupting their command structures. What had once been a desperate fight for survival was now a war of rebellion, with humans pushing back against an invincible empire. The tide was turning, and the Empire began to feel the pressure. They had underestimated the humans' adaptability, their ability to unite in the face of overwhelming odds. For the first time, the Empire had encountered a species that refused to bend to its will, a species that fought not just for survival, but for the right to determine its own fate. The tipping point had come, and Earth was no longer on the defensive. The war had shifted, and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. The Galactic Empire, reeling from the unexpected failure of their orbital bombardment and the rise of human resistance, decided that the time had come to send their most feared enforcers, an elite group of alien warriors known as the Korath. These soldiers were the Empire's most lethal weapon, known throughout the galaxy for their terrifying strength, brutal combat skills, and ruthless efficiency. Their sole purpose was to crush any resistance and bring entire civilizations to their knees. The Axorath descended onto Earth with one mission: to wipe out the human resistance once and for all and break the spirit of the people who dared defy the Empire. Wherever they landed, destruction followed. Cities were razed, and the landscape was left scarred as the Axorath carved a path of terror across the planet. Their presence struck fear into the hearts of many, but they had underestimated one crucial element: humanity's indomitable spirit. The Xorrath were used to overwhelming their enemies with sheer force, to crushing those who stood in their way without hesitation. But on Earth, they faced something they had not anticipated, a species that, despite all odds, would not bow to their might. What the Xoreth failed to account for was the strength of the human heart, their capacity to endure, to fight, and to innovate under extreme pressure. In the midst of the chaos, a small band of human soldiers, led by Captain Riley Granger, found themselves face to face with a squad of Xoreth. It was a desperate situation. The Xoreth towered over them, armed with weapons far superior to anything the humans had. The air was thick with tension as the two forces stood on the desolate battlefield, the ruins of a once thriving city in the background. Captain Granger, a seasoned veteran, knew this was their moment. Despite their overwhelming disadvantage, he refused to back down. His team was a mix of military personnel and civilian volunteers, each one fighting not just for survival, but for the future of humanity. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing warriors who could crush them with ease. But Granger had something that Xoreth didn't. He understood that the key to winning was not just raw strength, but using their enemy's arrogance against them. The Xoreth, confident in their superiority, underestimated the humans, believing them to be nothing more than weak prey. This arrogance would be their downfall. As the Xoreth charged forward, Granger's team scattered, using the ruined city's terrain to their advantage. They knew they couldn't match the Xoreth's strength head-on, but they could outsmart them. Granger's soldiers used guerrilla tactics, setting traps and ambushing the Xoreth in small, quick strikes. The Xoreth were powerful, but they were not invincible. With every Xoreth warrior they brought down, the humans gained confidence. The battle raged on, and slowly, the tide began to turn. Granger's team, through sheer determination and quick thinking, managed to take down several Xoreth soldiers. One by one, the ruthless invaders fell, their arrogance no match for the cunning and resolve of the humans. The victory was hard-won, but it sent shockwaves through both sides. The humans had done the impossible. They had fought back against the Xoreth, the most terrifying force in the Empire, and they had won. News of the battle spread like wildfire, reaching the far corners of Earth and even the Empire's fleet. For the first time, the Xoreth's once legendary invincibility was called into question. If humans could defeat the Xoreth, what else were they capable of? Doubt began to creep into the minds of the Empire's forces, and the morale of the Xoreth started to falter. The humans had proven that they could stand up to even the most brutal of enemies. In the Empire's command centers, Emperor Zixar watched in disbelief as reports came in of the humans' victory. His once unshakable belief that the human race could be crushed by sheer force was beginning to crumble. The battle had not only been a physical defeat for the Xoreth, it had been a psychological blow to the Empire itself. Humanity had found a way to overcome the odds, and now the Empire was forced to confront the terrifying reality that their invasion was far from a foregone conclusion. The resistance was growing stronger, and the Xoreth's failure would be a reminder that Earth was not a world to be taken lightly. As the days passed, Earth's resistance continued to grow in both size and strength. What had started as a series of desperate, scattered pockets of rebellion had now evolved into a coordinated and highly organized force, pushing back against the Empire with unprecedented force. Humanity, once on the brink of extinction, was now taking the fight to the stars. With every victory on the ground, every blow struck against the Empire's forces, the humans' resolve grew stronger. They were no longer merely defending their planet. They were fighting for their very existence, for their future, and for the future of every child born under Earth's sky. The human spirit, once underestimated by the Empire, now shone through in every skirmish, every raid, every battle. Human ingenuity and adaptability had become the backbone of the resistance. The makeshift fleets, composed of scavenged Empire technology, repurposed military hardware, and human-made innovations, had been pieced together with remarkable skill. These fleets, once unorganized and ill-equipped, had now become a formidable force in their own right. They were fast, mobile, and unpredictable, exactly what the Empire had failed to prepare for. Now these fleets launched full-scale assaults on the Empire's military bases in nearby star systems, striking with ruthless precision. The raids sent shockwaves throughout the Empire's ranks. Military installations that had once been deemed impenetrable were now falling one by one. The Empire, spread thin across the galaxy, was struggling to maintain control. The success of these raids was not just about firepower. It was about the humans' ability to exploit every weakness in the Empire's operations. They were experts at guerrilla tactics, utilizing surprise and deception to strike at the heart of the Empire's power. They attacked supply lines, disrupted communication networks, and crippled the Empire's ability to respond to the growing threat. With every strike, they destabilized the Empire's carefully crafted systems of control. What had once seemed like an unstoppable juggernaut was now beginning to crack, its hold on the galaxy weakening with every passing day. Emperor Zixar, watching the slow unraveling of his conquest from his command center, could no longer ignore the reality that was unfolding. His once unstoppable empire was now being tested by a force it had never anticipated: humanity's refusal to surrender. The waves of victories on Earth and the growing strength of the resistance were a testament to something that Zixar could no longer dismiss. Humanity was not just fighting to survive. They were fighting for something far more powerful. They were fighting for their home, their freedom, and the future of their species. In a desperate attempt to rally his forces, Zixar broadcasted an impassioned speech across the galaxy. He promised his soldiers unimaginable power, riches, and glory once Earth was subdued. But his words fell flat. The spark of hope that had once ignited the fires of rebellion was now spreading like wildfire. The humans were no longer afraid. They had tasted victory, and with each triumph, their unity grew stronger. They were no longer fractured, no longer divided. The alliances between nations that had once seemed impossible were now unbreakable. Together, humans had found a common purpose that transcended borders and differences. They had found their collective strength. The Empire, with its vast fleets and nearly infinite resources, had always believed that sheer force would break humanity's will. But what they had failed to understand was that humans were not driven solely by survival. They were driven by something far more powerful: the love for their home, their families, and the future they had built. Earth was not just a planet to them, it was their entire world, and they would fight for it with everything they had. As the Empire's once imposing might began to falter, Zixar realized too late that he was facing something he had never encountered before: a unified, fiercely determined species, willing to fight to the very last for their freedom. The tide had turned, and now, the Empire's hold on the galaxy was slipping away, bit by bit. The humans had shown that they were more than just survivors. They were warriors, and they would not be subdued. The Empire's grit on Earth was weakening, and the resistance, once a desperate hope, was now a force to be reckoned with. The balance of power was shifting, and the Empire had never been more vulnerable. The final battle for Earth was upon them, a moment that would determine the fate of not just their planet, but the very essence of human freedom. The Galactic Empire, seeing their once unshakable dominance slipping away, had sent their remaining forces for a last-ditch effort to crush Earth's resistance. These forces were no longer the same well-coordinated, overwhelming war machine that had initially invaded. They were a broken, desperate group of soldiers, many of them demoralized after the fall of their mighty Exoreth and the continuous string of defeats they had suffered. But still, the Empire had one final card to play. They would bring everything they had left to bear on Earth, and they believed that with a crushing blow, they could still bring the humans to their knees. The battle that followed was nothing short of brutal. On Earth's soil, the war for survival reached its peak. Explosions rocked the cities, fires raged, and the sky above Earth was filled with the clash of space fleets as humanity's makeshift forces fought tooth and nail against the Empire's forces. The ground was soaked with the sacrifice of countless soldiers from both sides, each determined to either protect their home or expand their empire. Humanity, despite its limited resources, was fighting with a raw tenacity that the Empire had never seen before. They had come too far, endured too much, to give in now. But it was clear that the outcome of this final stand would not be decided by sheer firepower alone. It would be decided by the resolve, the adaptability, and the unity of the human race. And it was in these qualities that humanity found its strength. Captain Riley Granger and Dr. Lena Calloway, leaders of the resistance and symbols of human ingenuity, knew that in order to break the Empire's hold on Earth once and for all, they had to strike at the heart of the Empire itself. The Empire's flagship, the largest and most powerful ship in their fleet, was positioned in Earth's orbit, a symbol of their superiority. It was from here that Emperor Zixar commanded his forces, overseeing the final phase of the invasion. If they could infiltrate this ship and disable its core systems, they could cripple the Empire's command structure and send a powerful message. It was a nearly impossible mission, one that carried with it the full weight of humanity's survival. Yet, in true human fashion, Granger and Calloway took the risk. In a daring operation, they breached the heavily fortified flagship, using every ounce of their ingenuity to bypass security systems and navigate through the Empire's labyrinthine corridors. They were met with fierce resistance, but their courage and resourcefulness carried them through. In the heart of the flagship, they finally reached the core systems. The fate of Earth hung on a single moment. With one final act, Calloway initiated the sequence that would deliver a devastating blow to the Empire's flagship. The ship began to tremble, systems failing one by one as the Resistance's strike took effect. The explosion that followed was catastrophic, tearing through the flagship's core and sending shockwaves across the Empire's fleet. The death of Emperor Zixar was not just a blow to the Empire. It was a signal that the days of their dominance were over. The once invincible Empire, scattered and leaderless, began to retreat in disarray. Without Zixar's guidance, the remaining Imperial forces had no chance of holding their ground. As the last of the Empire's ships fled Earth's atmosphere, humanity stood victorious. Earth had not only defended itself, it had proven that no empire, no matter how vast or how powerful, could ever conquer the human spirit. The victory was not just about military triumph, it was about a species' refusal to be subdued, a testament to humanity's will to survive and thrive, no matter the odds. The message sent across the galaxy was clear. Earth was no longer a helpless target. "You are not welcome here" was not just a defiant slogan. It was a warning to any force that dared threaten humanity's freedom. Earth had become a beacon of resistance, a symbol of hope and defiance to every oppressed world in the galaxy. The humans had shown that their spirit could never be broken. No matter how many galaxies an empire could conquer, no force could ever truly defeat the heart of humanity. And as the last of the Empire's ships disappeared into the distant stars, Earth's people looked up, knowing that their fight had only just begun. But now, they stood as a united species, ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy would never forget the day Earth stood its ground and sent the message, "We will not be conquered."